If I told you that before every major turning point in life, before any leap, before any breakthrough that truly changes your destiny, there's a silent sign that always shows up first, would you believe me? Not an obvious warning, not an undeniable coincidence, not a message written on a wall, or a dramatic movie-style revelation. No, it's something much more discreet, almost invisible, an inner movement, a gentle sensation, a small discomfort that seems too insignificant to matter, but in reality, it's the very first announcement that something huge is approaching your life, something you might not even feel ready to receive, but that is already walking toward you. Most people ignore this sign because it doesn't arrive with noise. It doesn't arrive with urgency. It arrives as silence, as a soft emptiness, as a space that opens inside you for no logical reason. It appears as that strange awareness that something feels different even though nothing outside of you has changed. And maybe, just maybe, you're feeling this right now. That almost impossible terrifying sense that a cycle is ending, that your thoughts no longer fit in the same old spaces, that your heart is asking for something you don't yet know how to name. And that's why this video found you. Not by accident, never by accident, because when the soul calls, life answers. And sometimes it answers through words, encounters, signs, videos, or anything necessary for you to finally understand what's been happening inside you. You're here because something in you recognizes this call. Something in you is trying to understand what's about to happen. Something in you knows you're being guided, even if your mind is still trying to resist. And it all begins with this feeling that many people confuse with tiredness, with lack of motivation, with mild sadness, or with anxiety. But it isn't any of those things. It is simply the beginning of change. It is the first crack through which the new version of your life tries to enter. It's as if the old is dissolving slowly, not rushed, but unstoppable. And the more you try to go back to what you were, the more you realize the meaning is gone. What once uplifted you now feels heavy. What once inspired you now feels draining. What once fit perfectly now feels tight. This is the first sign. And it is always internal, always silent, always subtle. At first, you might try to ignore it. You might try to keep living normally. You might shove everything under the emotional rug. You might distract yourself. You might try to stick to the same routine, with the same people, the same habits, the same places. But something inside you has already changed, and when something within changes, everything outside must change too. It's inevitable. You can't pretend you didn't notice. You can't lie to yourself anymore. You can't squeeze yourself back into old molds. It's as if your soul is making room for something big. And to do that, it must first loosen everything that holds you back. And this is where the discomfort begins. A discomfort that doesn't hurt, but unsettles you. A discomfort that's hard to explain, but impossible to ignore. It shows up as a thought that keeps returning, as a sense of anticipation, as a sudden urge to change something even if you don't know what. It appears when certain conversations no longer make sense, when certain environments suddenly feel too small for you, when certain people no longer touch you the same way, when certain choices no longer resonate with who you are becoming. The soul always warns before the change. Always. It is the first to know. It detects misalignment long before the mind understands. And the warning arrives like this as a feeling, as if life were gently pulling you by the arm and whispering, "It's time." The more attention you give it, the more the sign intensifies. It begins as a breeze, but soon becomes wind. It begins as doubt, but becomes certainty. It begins as discomfort, but becomes necessity. You feel that something needs to change, and that feeling grows. But the most fascinating part is that the change doesn't start outside. It starts within, always within. Before life shifts, you shift. Before the path opens, your heart opens. Before the doors move, your consciousness moves. And suddenly everything that once felt normal starts to feel small. Everything that was routine begins to feel shallow. Everything you used to accept begins to feel unbearably heavy. This is where many people experience internal conflict, because they're still living in the old, but they already belong to the new. Their feet are still planted in the past, but their heart is racing toward the future. It feels like you're suspended between two worlds, the one trying to end and the one trying to begin. This in-between space is uncomfortable, but it's necessary because this is where you detach. This is where you release. This is where you recognize who you no longer are. This is where the ego resists and the soul insists. This interval is the portal. And while this portal opens, something else happens. You begin to drift away, not by choice, not by rational decision, but by resonance. The energy you once had is no longer the same. You find yourself naturally distancing from certain people, habits, and places, not out of arrogance, not out of superiority, but out of vibrational incompatibility. You have changed, and the world around you is trying to adjust to that change. Sometimes this distance hurts, because it feels like you're leaving important pieces of your life behind. But you're not losing anything. You're simply releasing what no longer belongs to your path. Life never removes anything without purpose. It only removes what blocks your growth. And even when you try to hold on, the universe finds a way to help you let go. Then comes the most intense moment of all. The moment you realize you can no longer return to who you were. Even if you wanted to, even if you tried. You already know too much. You've already felt too much. You've already seen too much. You can no longer fit into old patterns because your consciousness has expanded. And once consciousness expands, it never returns to its original size. Never. This is when life starts to act. When you finally accept that something is changing inside you. When you finally understand that you can't sustain the old anymore. The universe begins to move. More obvious signs start appearing. Situations that force you to think differently. New people crossing your path with important messages. Intuition so strong they feel like silent screams. Coincidences so precise that you know they aren't coincidences at all. Life begins to guide you. It opens doors for you. It pushes you toward paths you never would have considered before. It shows you possibilities that once felt way too far away. And at some point, there's always a turning point. A moment that, when you look back, you realize that was where everything began. Sometimes it's a sudden insight. Sometimes a conversation. Sometimes a last-minute decision. Sometimes a boundary you decide you'll no longer allow anyone to cross. Something small but decisive. Something that changes everything. And when that turning point arrives, it feels as if the weight of the old finally falls away. You breathe. Your body feels lighter. Your heart feels freer. It's like you finally crossed the portal and arrived on the other side. Life begins to align. Things start to flow, not without challenges, but with meaning, with direction, with purpose. And only then you understand that all that early discomfort wasn't a downfall, it was a transition. It wasn't confusion, it was preparation. It wasn't chaos, it was rearrangement. Life was moving, even when you thought you were standing still. And maybe right now, you're living one of these phases. Maybe you can feel this silent signal growing inside you. Maybe you're in the space between the old and the new. Maybe you're already quietly distancing yourself from what no longer makes sense. Or maybe you're just about to cross the portal. Wherever you are, know that none of this is random. None of this is accidental. Nothing you're feeling is too much. It's your soul guiding you toward profound change, a change that has already begun, even if you can't see it yet. And now, if these words touch something inside you, I need to tell you this. Do not be afraid. The new doesn't arrive to destroy your life. It arrives to realign it, to expand it, to free it. It arrives to return you to yourself, to bring you back to who you always were before fear, before shrinking, before getting lost in the noise of the world. And if you're feeling this sign, this silence, this emptiness, this discomfort, know this. The change is real, and it's close, very close, closer than you think. Trust what you feel. Your soul knows the way, even when you don't. And if you want to keep receiving messages like this, messages that deepen your journey and help you understand what's unfolding inside you, then tap the like button now, because it tells me this content resonates with you. Comment below if you've ever felt this silent sign. I genuinely want to know. And subscribe to the channel so you can keep walking this path with me, because there's still so much your soul wants to reveal to you.